Josh, we are back.
Oh, Juan,
How
good to
are
see
you?
you, man. How you doing?
Good, man. I'm still into this whole World Cup deal. It's been exciting. Some crazy setbacks. Countries like Germany that they've always been a powerhouse in soccer, but they lost yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, they lost, and Netherlands lost. So yeah, it's interesting. But so the reason why I bring that up, Josh, is because I today's episode, right, is super exciting to me, and it's about office politics, right? How to win without being toxic.
Yeah, this is a fun one, man.
Yeah, I love it.
What here's an interesting statistic. When we're talking about this, here's an interesting fact I looked up that 80% of U.S. workers describe their workplace environment as toxic in Monster's 2025 Mental Health in the Workplace survey. And that was a jump from 67% in 2024. And so I think there is everyone, a lot of people that could accuse or think that their workplace is toxic, but you still have to win. You're still going to be there for most of your day. You're still going to spend your time with these people and spend a lot of your lifetime there. And so the question is like, how do you make that work for you, right?
Yeah, and it's like I've been there, done that, got a few T-shirts, and more often than not, the initial reaction is always, "I'm out of here," right? But I think that this goes to that core theme of do hard things, and that is hard to do, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is,
yeah,
man. I think
yeah.
dealing with a toxic or feeling like your workplace is toxic is one of the most difficult situations to deal with. Because like you spend so much time there, and usually the people that I meet that or the experiences I've seen in my lived experiences are a lack of trust in the workplace that deal create toxicity or people thinking it's toxic or not. And so some people just, they do kind of the normal thing, just avoid it. Like how they become, it's like, yeah, like if you have a bully, it's like high school again, right? See some people just try to duck and dodge and weave them. You see other people like, oh, I'm going to fight this. What's different at work dynamic though about fighting it is there is a power dynamic there that makes it not an equal playing field. So it's so funny to see other people just try to play the game.
Yeah. You started off with the statistic, and that also brings to mind, according to the Human Resources Management Company Association, 1 in 5 Americans left a job in the last 5 years because of bad company culture. And so while this podcast is meant to help those young professionals trying to navigate these issues, for those companies that think you shouldn't be worried about toxic work cultures, according to the SHRM, the cost for turnover has been $223 billion. So if that doesn't raise your the hair in back of your head and your neck, whatever, that you need to figure out how to help these toxic work cultures, man, you got issues, and it's a leadership issue, right?
You always hear, you gotta get the right people on the bus. God, I've heard that phrase so many times. Sometimes it's like, are we on the right bus? Does this bus like have the right engine? Is like, can we look at that too? Is it not can we look at other stuff? Like, what are our processes? There's a statistic you said that one, another one I heard years ago. I don't even know where it's from. It said that if people had accepted a counter offer to stay, over 60% of them left the following year anyways, because what fundamentally we had a problem with that caused them to go elsewhere was never fixed. And so, yeah, the other thing I've heard about, I'll share with you, is the Cartman drama triangle, which is there's like three roles in every kind of like situation at work. Specifically, there's the aggressor or persecutor, the rescuer or savior, and then lastly the victim. And so every victim's always looking for somebody kind of in the workplace too, if they're having issues, to save them or rescue them too. So I think there's another dynamic there. You gotta like try to avoid those kind of specific situations, or at least transform them into something that can be positive instead of negative.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that. Right? You said it's the Cartman.
Yeah, KARPMAN drama triangle. It's
Got
been
you.
around since 50 years now. There's a bunch of different books about it though.
Right, right. But then the three elements or the three personas, it sounds like, is you said the aggressor.
Victim, so the person, yeah, the aggressor, and then the rescuer or savior. So it's usually like the victim is like the person, the staff member. The manager supervisor is always the persecutor or aggressor, almost
Mm.
always. if they're holding the person accountable. And then the person, they're always looking for a rescue or a savior. Sometimes I try to do that, like they're like the team lead or something like that, or somebody else. But that's what everyone's looking for in that power dynamic.
I wonder, Josh, when you bring this up, is it better in these situations? Do you think if it is it better to be selfless or selfish?
Ooh, I would say it depends on the situation.
Ah, okay, so it's not a black and white.
If you're thinking about relationships, it's never black and white, unfortunately.
Yeah, no,
Because like,
that's fair.
uh, we have varying levels of trust in our relationships. And so, like, let's say yours or my relationship, I would be selfless and see what you need, man. I got your back, right?
Right, right.
But something I don't really know, I don't really trust. I'm like, I'm probably natural human nature is going to be selfish.
Yeah, yeah. You know, this gets me thinking. I wonder if you could share with us what is your definition of leadership? And
Man.
I know there's a lot, right? There's a lot out there and a lot of ways to kind of dice this, right? But what is your, in your professional experience, what's been your personal leadership definition?
Yeah, I will share. I have this question I like to ask in interviews is what's the difference between management and leadership? And I would share with you the same thing that I would put in that response. Management is the external management of motivations, like write-ups, money, raises, all those things. Leadership, so the extrinsic, external things, right? Leadership is the management of the intrinsic motivations, like your pride, your not just your pride, but how resilient you are to situations and how grateful you are and appreciative and all these like inner kind of intrinsic values that we build in a workplace and from the culture and take away from that, which are all driven by, I would say, trust. Like my motivation to work for somebody, if I really trust them, is going to be drastically higher. What about you? Is there anything you want to add to that or
Well, no, I was interested in going back to what you just gave. Tell me more about resilience.
resilience? Man, as a soldier, I think we can all, well, I know you and I can agree with this one, is we're all going to face challenges in life. Jimmy Carr, a comedian, he's, and a couple of people, I'm sure Alex from Rosie say this too. If you want to have a fulfilling life, get ready for challenges. Because fulfillment comes from facing and overcoming challenges. And fulfillment doesn't come from just getting what you want and like it coming to you, right? Like it's kind of like the question of who gets more fulfillment, the guy that won the gold medal or the guy that got something really easily, like let's say a trust fund baby
Yeah,
got their trust fund, right?
yeah,
Silver spoon, yeah. And you're just
yeah.
like, well, who got more fulfillment for that situation? The kid that got his trust fund and awarded to him, who did nothing to earn it besides being born in the right place at the right time? Or the person that suffered and strived for years and they put their blood, sweat, and tears in something and they finally accomplished their goal? Well, we're all going to say it's the gold medal. And it's not because the actual award or the medal situation, that actually is a whole different thing. But it's the blood, sweat, and tears you put into something that make it rewarding. And so resilience is the ability just to keep facing that every day, man, even when it's hard.
I love that. And I know you were going to ask me the way I look at leadership. I had somebody ask me in an interview, how do you manage people? And I was like, wait, I don't manage people. I feel that I gotta lead people before I can manage. To me, that's completely different, two different things. Cause even management can be just the management of systems, right? The IT system, the HR system, legal, whatever. Those systems you're going to manage. You're going to manage schedules, right? Like, when does someone start? When does someone leave work, et cetera, et cetera. Leadership to me, is about getting people to do something that think they can't do, right? And it's hard. And you think about like the Navy SEALs or Delta Force guys and all those in the special operations community. They do really, 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 really hard things. And thinking about Simon Sinek, right? That conversation he has with the SEALs when he asks the SEAL instructor, hey, who makes it through buds? And correct me if I'm wrong in telling this, but they say, I cannot tell you I can't tell you that who doesn't make it. It's usually the body lifters, the high school or college track stars, whatever, varsity players, and those guys typically don't make it. The ones that make it are the ones that are beat during their iterations, whatever it is that they're doing, but they still find that juice in their body, despite not having slept, despite not having eaten, to help the guy to the left or right of them. Right. And that's why I was asking, is it better to be selfish or is it better to be selfish? But I think to your point, sometimes it's better to be selfish and in many ways, I think what I try to do in the different roles that I've had, I always, and this is what I learned from the army, mission first, people always. I feel that people always, right? Because if you take care of your people, you build that strong work culture, you motivate them, you teach them or help them to be resilient, they are always, 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 always going to go above and beyond for you. And you're going to win no matter what. The
Yeah.
mission is going to get accomplished
Uh,
and you're going to win, right?
yeah.
So,
How do you package that up to win in today's work culture though? Like regardless, like how do you kind of navigate that? Do you think? Now that we define the problem, let's move on. I'm trying to get you. What's the solution to that? That's kind of hard.
yeah, it's extremely hard. We already hit on this a couple times, but be resilient. I think that's important and understand what resilient means, right? And it's a lot of times we use words and we think that people know what they mean, but they don't actually, some may not know what it means. But going back to Simon Sinek, and maybe you can take this on his book, The Infinite Game, and you've got this down, right? So I'm gonna put it back in your lap, on your lap.
I would say you gotta understand the game that you're in at work, right? Like Simon Sinek has this whole book about game theory, and it breaks down. There's finite games and infinite games. A finite game is like basketball. It is a agreed upon rules, set of rules, agreed upon time limit, how we score. It's everything's agreed. Infinite game is there's no rules or the rules can change and the players come in and out of the game. And the goal of infinite game is just to continue playing the game as long as possible. So like the Cold War was an infinite game. Work is an infinite game. Your goal is just to play the game and be there as long as possible, not get fired basically. That is the game. And so it's not like basketball. It's not like it's not a finite game. There's no like buzzer at the beater of like retirement. Like, hey, you're retired. Congratulations, you finally got here. Like, that's not how it happens. But you need to be able to make that decision when you want, which is when you decide to leave the game, which again is infinite game. So you need two things to keep playing the infinite game is you need the motivation to continue to play it and the resources to continue playing the game. And so at work, right, you're talking about motivation is like, so am I personally motivated to just play the game? Well, that's where the whole resilient thing comes into place and all these other intrinsic motivations and all that. And then the resource you need at work to keep playing a game is the trust of people around you. And so it goes back to trust ultimately, because that's like every relationship. The better you know somebody, the more you trust them, and building those relationships at work. And I would say the three key aspects we always talk about work and building trust is going to be, are you building the skill sets to actually be helpful? Like, if you want to build trust, like, let's say you are over, I don't know, contracts, and accounts payable comes up to you, and is like, hey, man, I need your help out with X or whatever.
Mhm.
And if you know nothing besides just your specific stuff, you are not really helpful. They're gonna be like, I
Yeah,
don't even know what you just said. Can
yeah.
you please say that in words I get? And so, like, you gotta build those skill sets, communication skill sets, so you can speak effectively and be like, here's your question, here's the answer. Also, FYI, there's other three parts that's important too, so you know. And they're like, man, you're smart. I am going to come back to you for every question I ever have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so, like, you got to build those skill sets up. And then the other thing is just always being warm and having moments back. You know, that there's always two aspects of trust, right? Which we've talked about 1,000 times. One, you have the competency, which we just talked about. And then two, are you going to stab me in the back since I turn my back? And if you are, like, I can't trust you because you're going to get a reputation.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, that whole relationship building piece is so spot on, right? Because relationship building trust is about relationship building. I remember being a battalion logistics officer, right? So I was in charge of all things that moved back from Iraq. That included, personnel, vehicles, equipment, et cetera, et cetera. But in order to get our tanks on the boats, we had to clear the EPA cycle. We had to make sure that there was no, mud or whatever else. So they didn't want us to bring those agents that can contaminate anything in the U.S. And that process was extremely long, lengthy, and you're tired from the deployment, etc. People want to get back home, but the gatekeepers in and this was in Kuwait. Camp Arifjan, the gatekeepers, the civilians and some military guys that were in charge of lining up the tanks, which meant if you line up the tank and put it on the ship, then your unit gets to go home. So that was a critical, decisive point, right? That was a morale thing, in my opinion, right? And I remember I would go as a logistics officer, go see the guys, the gals that were doing that arrangement. So who goes first, second, whatever. And the people in front of me, right? All these other officers usually would get into, griping contests with the people that were deciding who is going to go next, right? And these guys were like, finger pointing this and that, just completely disrespectful. And I could see these guys and gals just doing the north and south. Yes, yes, okay, yeah, you're lieutenant colonel. Yeah, yeah, okay, major. And the minute they left, right, if they had the stack of all the paperwork or what unit was going next, the minute they left, the guy would grab the, if he was up towards the top, there you go. Thank you, sir. Put it in the bottom, right? And when I saw that, I was like, wait, I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to play a different game. So before I went in, I started warming up, right? I started building, although a very short relationship, but I started building relationship first before demanding what's my position in the queue, right? So can you imagine if you do that in the workplace as a 25, 35-year-old? Think about that. Imagine yourself building relationships first before demanding, right? And to your point too, build the skills, right? Get the metrics going, career develop, but make good, strong relationships. And let me take that a little further for these young professionals. Take that relationship building beyond just you and your manager or your immediate supervisor. Think up, think left and right, and think down. Because one day, and it happens all the time, right? One day, that one person, it's happened to me, and it was extremely humiliating to me. Oh, that's another story. But one day, you're going to be in the top, and all of a sudden, you're going to go to the bottom, right? That's what happened to me when, retiring from the military and went back as a contractor to this old position. And I was like, nobody. And I was like, wait, I was in charge of this organization. But anyways, my point is you never know what's going to happen in the future. And that one person that you supervise may become your supervisor and go, and if you didn't treat them right, if you didn't have a good relationship with them, boy, that's going to come back and haunt you.
Yeah.
Right? What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think one of the mistakes that I made, especially as a young professional, is trying to be too transactional in my relationships instead of just adding value. Like, I think one thing that actually I've learned in my marriage, honestly, most of all, is when someone asks for help, don't offer just to bring the help that I want to bring or provide, but to give the help they actually request.
There you go.
Like, I don't know
That's a
how many
good
times
one, Josh. That's a good one.
that, yeah,
Because sometimes we think we want to help. Sometimes we think our help is needed. But
yeah.
wait, get asked first. I love that. I love what you just said.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's the number one mistake I see constantly is like, "Hey, I need some help." Like, okay, well, I'll do X, and the person's like, "Well, I need Y though." Like, I don't really. Okay, thanks. And they don't really appreciate it then, and they're not. You're not really helpful. You're just kind of like there, and it's like, man, if you're gonna be helpful, actually be helpful. Like, what is your problem that you actually need help with? And if you don't know the answer, that's okay. Say like, I don't know that answer. Let me see if I can either get the answer for you or tell you who to go ask because I don't know that one. And if they don't, then if you give them, they're like, if that doesn't work, come talk to me and we'll figure it out together if we need to. But like, be actually helpful.
Yeah.
It's like just the number one skill, and you need all those other skill sets, those hard skills, to be helpful in those situations, right?
Yeah. Josh, let me ask you. A lot of these young professionals, 25 to 35, have this experience already. They may not have realized, or maybe not yet. But if you just have a baby, is it good to have your in laws in the house to help?
Is it ever good to have anybody in your house?
No, and the reason I ask is because a lot of times in-laws may think, "Oh, I'm gonna go there help you," and they just show up and park, But maybe the dynamics of that relationship is one that the in-laws just don't realize. They shouldn't know, right? Because it's their relationship, but they think they're gonna go in there and help, and maybe that's not help at all, right?
Yeah.
And so I
Yes.
think I keep bringing up. Think about family dynamics when you think about the workplace.
Yep.
It's really no different.
Yep. Same thing.
Right? Don't and the other thing too is don't invite your parents to come help take care of the little young one without first consulting the wife, right?
There
What
you
do you
go. That's how they kick you out.
Yeah, yeah. But we make those mistakes, right? And so it's the same thing in the work,
100%, man.
right?
Yeah, I think the one of the most biggest phases for me to mature is when I started making the connections between workplace and home and being like, oh my God, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Now I can actually connect all the dots. Before, that's why I was like, in my younger days, it's like all transactional relationships. Like, what do you need? How do I do this? Blah, blah, blah. Like, it was just like, even when I was a young supervisor, I used to ask the question, how do I get the most out of my people? Which is the wrong question. It's not actually, that's actually
Mm,
something that creates a toxic work environment, right? Like, that was part of the problem. Even though I want to do a good job. One of the things to keep in mind, too, is everybody wants to do a good job. We all start a job wanting to do a good job. It's just we go awry somewhere in that process. But I would say, how do I get the most out of my people? Which is not the right question. The right question is, how do I create the environment that allows these people to perform at their best? And sometimes that is me being involved in giving structure as a leader. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is very much stepping in and helping micromanage a situation where someone has no clue and is like, I don't know I'll do the work, but like, I need help here. That's when you actually should micromanage. The military does this really well of like the laissez-faire. Like, I'm kind of like hands off, here's your process until I see a problem or there's chaos. And then I come in and get I start barking orders.
yeah. Yeah.
The military teaches those two dynamics. Well, especially the barking the orders part. I would say they lead on that one. I've learned
Yeah.
in my civilian career the laissez-faire management style better. Like, when do you? But being able to balance those two to the right person will create all the difference from them experiencing what they think is either the most productive work environment they've ever had or the most toxic that they're like, I can't even function in society like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, just understanding that and being able to have those relationships, and just like, what do you need from me as a person? Whether I'm your coworker, because you don't have to be a supervisor to be a leader. We've talked about it. You can be a coworker, a friend, and it's really just the simple, complex statement of how do I have your back? That was one of my key takeaways from the military. Is I learned is how do I have your back? And I say that at work now. When someone's asking me like, "Hey, I need help with something," I'm like, "Okay, okay, how do I have your
Yeah.
back?"
Yeah,
Or when someone will bring me,
that's something I really enjoyed about when I got to work under you is you never, if I went into your office and, gave you an update or whatever, you'd always end the conversation with how can I have your back? And I felt that and that was genuine. I love that. I love that you. And I can attest to that. You took the time to make sure that your folks knew that you had their back. And unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, with all these managers, leads, and directors. And that's where again that selfish versus selfless. Be careful how you play that game. Josh, we're almost gonna close out in this episode. But let me ask you one more question that I think it's important. Reputation in the workplace goes a long way. We think it doesn't matter, but it does. So how do you protect your reputation, Josh? If what would you tell a young professional who maybe is not doing right? It's maybe because a lot of times too, some of these young professionals may be learning how to do the wrong thing from their supervisors, right? It becomes muscle memory. If my supervisor is doing that, I'm gonna do it too, right? He or she's getting away with it, but we neglect to understand that reputation goes a long way, and a lot of times that reputation is more about perception than reality. Would you agree?
I would say, if you want to be perceived a certain way, you need to act a certain way. And what's that old homage that my parents will say? My parents used to say, "Keep your friends close, your enemies closer." I mean, there's that phrase. The other one I'm trying to think of though, the company you keep is how people will interpret you.
Heck yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Man, I grew up with that. My grandmother, well, this lady is such a beautiful soul, but she would tell us that all the time. It was in Spanish. I'm gonna say in Spanish. Dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. So the translation, close translation is, tell me who you're with, and I'm gonna tell you who you are.
There you go. See, that's a whole cultural thing for you guys,
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
That's
Oh yeah, big time, big time. You gotta surround yourself with people that are going to elevate you. That includes your partner, right? Because if you're a stud in the workplace and this and that, but you don't have a good relationship with your partner, you more likely are going to go down in one way or the other. So it's important. It's important to surround yourself with the right people. I
That's how you
agree.
protect your reputation, because those are the people that'll have your back even when you're not around, and because those are the people that'll have other conversations that will either gossip about you or the
Yeah.
ones that will are other people respect,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they'll speak highly of you.
Yeah. The final thing I would love to close with, Josh, is you were talking about. I think we talked earlier about the different type of leaders. And by far my favorite book, my favorite political philosophy book is by this guy named Niccolo Machiavelli, written about 500 years ago. He wrote this book called The Prince. It's a short little book. Highly recommended to young guys and girls. Read this very small book, because one thing that Machiavelli does is he tells us exactly what the human nature is like, right? And though I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but the one thing that aligns with what we were talking about, there's the leader that becomes a leader, or he calls it the prince, right? There's a prince that becomes prince by fortune or on their own accord. By fortune meaning, it goes down the line, right? Your dad is the CEO, you inherit his business and you're rich, right? And those that come up by fortune typically are not good leaders, right? I'm sure there may be some exceptions to the rule. No, I know there are some. But those that earn their way up from the bottom up, man, they're going to understand and empathize with their people a lot better. And they're going to understand the value of relationship building, building trust and building. But yeah, I wanted to close my leadership answer to you.
Well said, Juan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So for the listeners, viewers, subscribe to Office Talk. The link below. Come on in. Let's talk. Let's do your career audit. We'll get it right. It may not be 100% because this is hard stuff, and there is not a book out there, a manual, whatever, that teaches you the things that Josh and I are sharing with you guys. But where we take this to the next level is where we hear you and we help you and we learn together, right? It takes a village. All right. Thanks, Josh. We'll see you on the next one.